How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Trades Talk. Today, Maggie and I debrief on all of our travels over the last few weeks. And Maggie shares some tips about how to be a mother and a woman in the landscape and trades industries. A lot of takeaways from today's episode. I'm excited to dive in. Before we do, I have a special offer for you guys. The Lawn and Landscape Technology Conference is coming up July 23rd through the 25th in Atlanta, Georgia. I've gone to this conference the last 4 years, and every year I am amazed by the new technology entering the landscape space. This event has companies you have never heard of, and you get a chance to talk one on one with the founders and inventors of these new innovative technologies. Bonus, there are a lot of great speakers. I'm also going to be speaking on Wednesday. You're not going to want to miss it. It's a fun show. Like, if you haven't registered yet, go online right now. There's a link in the show notes. Type in white10 at checkout and get 10% off your registration. No limit on how many people you can register, so you can bring your entire team. Maggie's going to be there with the Big Aspire team. I will obviously be there with the Big K&D team, and we hope to see you there as well. All right, let's dive into today's show.
All right, welcome back. We are here with another episode of Trades Talk, and today you get me and Justin. We are excited to dive into some of the stuff we've been up to. We've both been traveling. We have learned a lot in the last few weeks, and we thought it was important to tell our listeners what we're hearing, what's going on out there. So how are you doing, Justin?
I'm fantastic, Maggie. I'm excited to talk with you just about everything and catch up, honestly, with you just
Yeah.
on a side note. Like, I'm glad we're recording this, but I'm interested to hear about your travels. I'm excited to share with you some of the things I've learned. We do this all the time. This is why we started the podcast, is to keep those vibes and energy going after we get back from being on the road. So I'm excited for today.
Yeah, I think I just posted on your LinkedIn, and actually LinkedIn flagged it for me, but you had posted about your talk in Southern at Southern Botanical, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. But I commented that I get to talk to you weekly to do this podcast, sometimes multiple times a week, and every single time we talk, I take away something, and people would be idiots, not to see you talk or to listen to what we have to say. And LinkedIn didn't like the word idiots, but I posted it anyway.
It was not inclusive enough. Well, I posted that picture because I've listened to a lot of speakers. I've been to a ton of conferences since 2015. I've been on this search for knowledge, right? And one thing I've noticed is some speakers have you 100% captivated, and others you're completely tuned out within 5 minutes, and there's really no in between. And so I've studied, like, what about those speakers gets me captivated and keeps me away from my cell phone and keeps me from drifting off and thinking of something else. And I've tried to hone those skills. And so I come out, one thing I've noticed is high energy, super engaging, and having the speaker ask the people in the audience to talk.
Mhm.
And when you're engaging and you're talking, or or may not know if you're going to be called on, people tend to be ready to be called on. So I posted that of just an audience that was totally engaged. And it was just a kind of a proud moment for me to be able to create this opportunity for people to not only learn from each other, but just to learn from themselves, like
Yeah.
really reflect on our own thoughts and our own vision of what we want out of our lives and our companies.
Yeah, I was just at a conference this past week, and there were 3 different keynote speakers, and I'm gonna get into it a little bit, but they could not have been more different. And one on the last day actually told everyone to take their phones and put them face down. And at first, I was actually, like, really offended by that, to be honest with you. Like, I'm a mom, I have, like, stuff going on. She made the comment that if you get distracted by something, it takes 25 minutes for you to get re-engaged in the way you were before. That's how big distractions can be. So, I gave it a try. I'm not going to say that I was perfect and my phone stayed face down the entire time, but I was sitting right in the front, and it definitely made me feel like, okay, like if she sees me pick up my phone, like I'm in trouble sort of thing, and made me more engaged. So great tip there. Why don't we start by like telling us a little bit more about what you've been doing? You went on a 10-day road trip?
Yeah. Yeah. 10 days. It was actually a blast.
What did that road trip look like? I know you went to a couple different events, and what are your big takeaways? So break it down for our listeners.
Yeah. So it was a great road trip. So it started off going to Dallas, Texas, and got in there just before the big storms came in, like really early May. And so partnered up with Aspire and Weathermatic to do this talk that's all about embracing technology and creating a vision for your company. And my whole purpose, not only just at K&D, but at the JW Group and my own personal purpose is to raise the bar in the landscape industry. So what I want to do is go around and share the story of K&D, but also to inspire others to invest in themselves and invest in their teams and create a vision. So we're lucky enough to be hosted by Southern Botanical, which has a beautiful facility. They've done a really, really amazing
Insane.
job.
I haven't personally because they did a field trip there at one of the things. It was at night. I sat it out because we had limited spaces and I thought it was more important for our clients to be able to go. But the photos of that place are absolutely incredible. Like, how could you not want to show up to work every day and work in a cool place like that?
It's so cool. Really open concept. And they have a huge conference room that holds over 100 people, which was perfect for us. We had about 70 that showed up. And we just had a great time. The
Yeah.
vibes were high. Everyone was sharing information. There's a few people who text me before was like, "Hey, I really want to come to the event, but we compete with Southern Botanical all the time. Like, do you think it'd be okay if I came?" And it was a heck yes, come on in. And they were so welcoming, so friendly, and everyone just really was there for the betterment of our industry. And I was honored to be a part of that type of a environment.
Yeah, I have a
So
question for you on that. After seeing a facility like that, and I've been to K&D, and I know that the K&D office currently, as it sits, is pretty closed off. There's lots of rooms and lots of individual offices, and I know you want to potentially build a new office. I don't know if I'm giving that away, but what takeaways as you get from just how the layout is, the facility, all of that for your new office?
yeah, I had the pleasure of visiting some really beautiful facilities along this road trip, and the other one was Par 3 in Las Vegas. And what I took away from both Par 3 and Southern Botanical is immediately when you walk in, you're greeted by someone. There's someone right there ready to greet you and help you to get to where you're going. If you're there to apply, if you're there for a meeting, someone's, "Hey, how are you? What can I help you with?" The lighting is amazing, a lot of natural light. And then it's just you walk around and they have different segments. They have their account manager area, and it's not a bunch of small offices. It's like a big area where the account managers can really network and ask each other for help and bounce ideas off each other. Because I think one common thing in the landscape industry with the account managers is a lot of people come in with a desire to learn, but not necessarily a
Mhm.
lot of horticulture background. Maybe they're a salesperson or a property
Yep.
manager. And so the networking within a company, especially a large company with their account managers is really important. So they have a great area. Both offices had that really, really great training areas. So both Par 3 and Southern Botanical have these huge training areas that hold literally 50 to 100 people, huge whiteboards, really professional, presentation for PowerPoints and stuff. And then it was a lot of plants, which is it should be, right? We're
Mhm.
landscapers. And one thing I noticed about both of these offices is there's plants everywhere. And it really creates this fun, living, growing atmosphere that people feel at home. And the whole work from home thing's been a big discussion,
Yeah.
right? Over the last 4 years. And I asked them, how many people work from home? And over the last year, it seems like most everybody's come into the office at both those companies. And I think a big part of that is because of their facilities. They
Yeah.
have great places to work.
That's important. Yeah, from someone who goes into the office every day, it is a different type of industry, being in tech. My team's all open air. So like some of these older offices were built with the design of these segregated office spaces because they didn't have the noise canceling technology. They didn't have, it was a different era.
Yeah.
And my team's floor is all open. We actually have large TVs that go off every time someone gets a sale or does something really exciting, creates this excitement. They have ping pong table, they have all this different stuff because and honestly, we have work from home Fridays. Half my team's in there on Friday anyway because they just want to be there.
Wow.
They want
That's
to be
cool.
working together. And yeah, it's this idea that people wanted to work from home because I felt like we were in a transition, not only with COVID, but in a transition of the old style of work where it was 8 to 5, very rigid hours. You went to work, you went home. And this new era is, work and home live together. They intertwine. It's this one thing like work hard, play hard. If you need to go out middle of the day, go out middle of the day and do something.
Yeah.
And people are more efficient than ever. So spending 8 to 9 hours in the office is that in the 10 years ago is the equivalent of spending probably 4 hours in the office. these
That's
days. So yeah.
totally agree. I call it work-life integration. And that means like full transparency, we're recording this podcast on a Saturday afternoon because, your kids are nappy and I had it free. And I don't see work as this Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 mindset. I see my career and what I do as just part of my life, an integrated part of my life. And there's days where in the mornings, I don't want to think about work. I want to get up. I want to work out. I want to meditate. I don't want to
Mhm,
do anything until 10 a.m. Then there's other days where we have a crew meeting at 6 a.m. with all of our foremen, and I want to be there. And so
mhm.
I'm up at 4:35, and I'm at the office by 5:45. It's just okay. It's part of this integrated lifestyle I have. It allows me to travel, still get work done. And I think the more we embrace that, which seems to be the norm, the more we embrace that as leaders and bosses, what have you, of companies, the more employee retention we're going to have, the more
Oh,
engagement we're going to have.
100%. I'm gonna get into that a little bit when I have a segment coming up here where I'm gonna talk about like being a working mom and integrating that into the daily schedule. I want to get back to your road trip, so I don't want
Okay.
to steal the thunder, but
Yeah.
I that's a note to think for the later in the episode. I'm gonna speak a lot to that because it's a very big part of my life.
The big thing that I found out on this travel road trip that just recently that I really it was like an epiphany I had. And it was funny. I saw this meme or something on Instagram and it says how much you learn based on what you're doing. And it's you learn more when you're teaching than any other part of your life. And I've
Yep.
totally leaned into that. And what I found out is when you go to teach on a subject, like for me, I talk a lot about creating a vision, embracing technology as part of that vision. So when I go to talk on this, I do a lot of research. Like, what are other visions out there? What are companies doing that are successful versus companies that maybe aren't successful or aren't growing as fast? And then what I realize is through this talk, I'm exploring these ideas with the audience and with the attendees. And we have these engaging conversations where they kind of ask questions or maybe they add value to the talk because I'm not necessarily there to teach people. I'm more there just to learn. But
Mhm.
when you go with the mindset that you are the person doing the teaching, whether you're leading a small group, your family, or you're leading a big company or a big conference, you tend to take more away from it than I think
Mm,
anyone else. And
mhm.
that was my big epiphany, I would say, on this trip is just the fact that I learned more in 10 days than I have probably at any other 10-day period in my life. It was really
Yeah.
transformational for me.
Yeah, and I think we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, and I wish we were recording it, but these days between I call them the 100 days of hell, but between April
Mm.
1st and July 30th, there's about 100 days in there, and people tend to I guess it's more March 1st, but whatever. People tend to hold off on travel and hold off on like you'll look at the industry event calendar. There are little to no industry events during this time. And it's because people are so focused on their day to day of their business. And it tends to get very monotonous and exhausting going in and doing like this, putting your head to the grind for getting through the spring. People who are in a seasonal market might not feel this as much, but they have their own struggles that they face this time of year. Getting on the road, taking 1 to 2 days, go visit a company, whether it doesn't have to be an event, go visit, a peer in the industry's shop, go hit up Justin and say, "Hey, can I come visit you, spend a
Yep.
day with you?" It really invigorates their spirit and like gets you excited again. And then you can come back and effectively, feel refreshed mid 100 days of hell.
Yeah, I definitely can relate to that. I think there's some value there too, because when you're in the busy part of your year and you step away, you're telling
Mhm.
your team that you trust them, no matter what your position is and how big or small your company is. When you step away for 2 days, 3 days of the working week, and you tell your team, "Hey, I'm going to be traveling. I trust you guys. I trust you deliver what we do every day. Make good
Mhm.
decisions while I'm gone." They will grow so much more while you're away than if you were to stay and feel like you're helping them. You're actually helping them when you leave and
Yeah.
hurting them if you're constantly hovering over your team. And that was another big thing for us. I was gone for 2 full working weeks and I came back and my team's thriving. They're doing amazing.
Yep.
Like now I'm not necessarily out of a job. I still have things I need to do, but they were doing great. And I think that's a big part that people don't realize is your team has so much more potential than you think and you
Mhm.
won't ever find that potential unless you let go of the vine and let them fly.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with the people in seat too. I will say I was 2 gone this whole past week, and my team put up a incredible week numbers wise. People were excited, like the energy was high. I could just see it through the chat messages, and I was watching the dashboard tickers. About a year and a half ago, my team was not at that place. And I want to talk to people whose team might not be at that place. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But the first step is recognizing your team's not at that place and you aren't at the capacity to leave. I did not trust the leaders I had in place and some other factors about a year and a half ago. But it was my problem to fix. And I can confidently say that it has been fixed tenfold. And I have fantastic leadership in place right now that, if I don't talk to my direct reports every single day, they're fine. I know they're fine. I know they're working. They're grinding and they're doing what they have to do so that I can do what I have to do. And that's visit these prospects, be a face for the industry, network and bring them more opportunity. So getting that people in place that you absolutely trust is critical to do all of these things. So I would say almost that's like step 0 before
Yeah.
leaving your office and traveling during this time.
Yeah. And I'll add, you may think your team is doing a good job and you may think you have the right people in the positions
Mhm,
because you're covering for them. You're kind of
mhm,
like covering those
mhm.
gaps. And as soon as you leave for a day or two, then you realize, wow, I actually don't have the team that I thought I had to make some changes. Maybe you promoted someone too quickly. Maybe someone has changed on their own. Was that more obvious to you that you needed to change the team up or make some moves because you were away from the office and away from the team?
Yes and no. There were certain things when I was in the office that I was seeing that were setting off red flags in my brain that I'm like, okay, if they're behaving this way when I'm here, what are they doing when I'm not here? And
Yeah.
then I had people in place that I could say, hey, like when I do step away, you are my spies, you are my advocate. Like just pop over and see what's going on when I'm not there. And the insights and takeaway that they had also led me to a lot of my decisions.
Makes sense too. I think being aware, but also like you said, this step 0, get your team set up. And when you do have
Mhm.
your team set up, test them, step away and test them.
I want to add one more note to this and it's kind of a side note, but my team talks to a lot of landscape contractors, a lot of pest control companies, these people who are in prime season right now. And we get a lot of no's right now. And that's totally normal. Like no one
Yeah.
wants to take on the task of onboarding enterprise system like Aspire or Field Routes or a Service Titan or any of those during their busiest time of year. But I always encourage my staff to be like, okay, I totally understand it, but can you just leave a notebook next to your desk? Because this is the time of year where the gaps in your company really shine and really identify themselves. If you're looking at software 6 months from now and you're trying to remember what happened in May that made things difficult, made things go awry, made cash flow hard, they're not going to be as fresh in your mind. So jot those things down, have the conversation with us while you're going through the 100 days of hell. And you don't have to onboard the software or do those sorts of things right now, but at least document what's not working because it's going to be so much harder to remember those things come fall.
Well, that's such great advice. And it's pain hurts really bad in the moment, and then you forget about it after a few weeks.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of people, and I talk a lot about this idea of embracing technology, whether it be a new software or whatever it is, new vehicles even. But this idea that if you get through this painful period and you're in November, December, January, and you're thinking about fixing those problems, you're like, wait a minute, I don't feel those pain points anymore.
Right.
So maybe the problem's fixed. Maybe I don't have those issues. But
Why
like
do you
what you're
think
saying,
mothers keep having children? It's because the pain exits your brain and you have the rewards to reap from it.
that's a good analogy. All right. So anyway, Dallas is great. A lot of fun. Went to Vegas, and this was a peer group. So I'm part of the ACE peer groups that is ran by the Grow Group and McFarland and Stanford, kind of a joint effort. Really, really great group of folks. And our specific peer group is about 13, 14 of us. And it ranges of size of company, but we tend to have the bigger companies in there. And one of the companies is Par 3 Landscaping, who we had on this show. And
Yep.
Pam and David run that company. Amazing story. I think one of the best company cultures I've ever seen in or outside the landscape industry. Just hands down, amazing culture. But
Yeah.
we went early. I went early, and we're working on this big maintenance bid right now. And so we wanted to get some information on how does Par 3 work on these giant HOAs in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
because we don't have a ton of those where we're from, but we're working on bidding this, like 5,000 units. So I took my sales team member, Tony, and we went out there 2 days early and met with the par three team to help get educated around what it's like maintaining a huge facility with, 15, 20,000 residents. And so we had dinner, we went out golfing, and we just networked the entire time and learned so much in those 48 hours. It was incredible.
How many shops could benefit, even if they can't leave their operation right now? Say they were where I was 18 months ago and they couldn't leave their operation right now. Call someone that can to come out and visit you.
Yeah.
Ask for help.
That was one of the trade secrets actually a couple episodes ago, was just ask. I think it was Zane maybe that
Yeah.
said that, maybe someone else, but it was just ask. And
Mhm.
it's amazing when you ask what you get in return. It
Yeah.
this industry is just so giving.
I'm sure they were so willing to help you understand how to bid those facilities. Like they perform them over and over and over again. Even someone probably in your not your direct market, but probably be a little bit more stingy, but the
Yeah.
next state over, someone that's on a direct competitor view, if you don't have to travel halfway across the US to meet with someone.
Yeah, and it was nice. I was there for the peer group, which I'll get into in a minute, but I went early. Now you don't have to physically leave. You could jump on a
Right.
Zoom call. Do that all the
Right.
time, whether it's with someone who's trying to figure out how to onboard Aspire in the best way possible, or they're trying to figure out some other technology. We'll jump on a Zoom and I'll just give them, I'm like, here's how we do it. That doesn't mean it's the right or wrong way. It's just how we do it. It's been successful. And if you want to take some things away from that, and half the time, Maggie, when I'm showing people we do it, I'm like, oh yeah, we actually need to fix this area. Like we're actually not really doing this as well as I think we
Yeah.
should. So it brings awareness to your own organization, your own workflows.
Yeah, absolutely. Peer groups, such a hot topic of the industry. There's many different peer
Yes.
groups out there. I know back when you signed Aspire, I think you were signed in 2020, but like we were just post COVID or something, and you and I met at a peer group meeting out in Beaver Creek, Colorado. You were there
Yeah.
exploring your current peer group, and I don't think you were in one at the time. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is this your first one?
No, this is my first industry one. I was in Vistage, which is a CEO peer group, but this is
Okay.
different.
So you decided, I think, what were you guys like? Probably 5, 10 million at the time.
Yeah, we're knocking on the door 10 million. I remember we weren't quite 10 when we went to that meeting though. We were like 8 or 9, and a bunch of
Yeah.
people were over 10. I was like, I really want to be 10.
Tell our listeners who had not joined a peer group or who don't even know what a peer group
Yeah.
is in the industry, what have you taken away from being a part of a group? And then the second part of my question is, do you wish you would have joined one sooner?
Yeah. Okay. So there's two, I think, kind of different peer groups. There's one where you're more locally based with a group of CEOs and business owners, but they're not
Mhm.
in your industry.
Yeah,
A
that's
lot of
Vistage.
value there.
Yeah.
Vistage, there's EO, there's YPO, there's a few others. That I'm in Vistage. Then there is industry specific peer groups with people who are not in your market. So you
Mhm.
don't have that geographic similarity, but you have the similarity of being in the same industry. That's what I want to talk about, is that industry specific peer group. You have so much value in benchmarking on gross profit, benchmarking on metrics within your company, cash flow, employee size, revenue per employee. You can start to understand where you match up against your peers. On top of that, we get to talk about trends in the industry. And it's really funny how trends will move across the United States in different directions, where residential design builds really, really hot on the West Coast, slow on the East Coast. And over the course of 3 months, the East Coast gets hot and the West slows down, or vice versa. It just depends on how things are moving.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with weather. But we can help each other in a lot of ways with trends and insights and leading indicators to make better decisions. And I think when it comes down to it, the biggest thing I get from a peer group is, one, I'm held accountable by someone besides my team. Number two, I get access to information and data that helps me make better decisions. And number three, I want to show up to every peer group meeting with the biggest improvement in profit. I'm competitive. So I am showing up. We're comparing numbers. I want to say I went from X to Y because we killed it on these 3 jobs. And I can brag about being the most profitable company. I haven't quite
Mhm.
hit that because some of the guys in my peer group are just absolute OGs at this, and I'm still tracking them. But it's fun. It's like an entertaining, fun game that we can all kind of joke about. But at the end of the day, it's serious. I mean, we're running big companies and we need to understand our numbers.
Yeah. That's great information.
So a lot of different options out there depending on what industry you're in. You asked the second question, would I wish I joined earlier? Absolutely. I wish I had joined the industry specific earlier. I joined Vistage in 2018 when we were about 5 million. I wish I joined that earlier. People don't join peer groups because they think they're not big enough. They're not a company yet. But whether you have 0 employees or 500 employees, joining a peer group is a great idea and will help you advance. So just because you're small or just getting started or what have you, don't shy away. That peer
Yeah.
group will help put you in a group of like-minded or similar type people that you are a peer of. Like it, they're usually not going to put a $1 million company with a $100 million company because it's really hard to assimilate those. If you're a 1 million and you want to be 10 million in the next 5 years, they will help get you at groups that are in that size. So you can grow into that group.
Yeah. And then also, just because you aren't in, if you're 1 million, you're just not in that group with that 100 million, doesn't mean you don't have access to that. So,
Yeah, good point.
peer groups are a part of a larger network. And so if you are 1 million, you want to talk to 100 million, you're open to talk to them. It's just not part of your regular scheduled cadence of meetings. You have access to this. And I know Marty Grunder and his peer groups are fantastic. His grow event, you have companies that are 1 million, 700,000, all the way up to, the complete lawn sculptures of the world. I can't even say their name, but I know that
Yeah.
they're well over 100. So you get really a diverse network of people.
So that was a fun trip.
There was a really important piece of that trip that you just skimmed over. And that was, if you follow Justin on Instagram, you would have seen this, but that was the golf portion of that trip. Tell people, because I know you were raving about this golf course. I was having extreme jealousy that you were golfing this beautiful course. Where'd you guys golf?
Okay, so after Dallas, I could have went home for like the weekend and then back to Vegas, but I was like, I'm just gonna go to Vegas straight away. And my buddy was actually playing in a softball tournament there. So we met up on Friday and went to St. George, Utah, which is only a 2-hour drive from Vegas. Amazing. If you ever are looking for a really out of the way, small, quiet town that has amazing golf, St. George is the spot. Prices, like for food and everything, are really reasonable, and golf too. I mean, you can get off at like 60, $70 a round on top notch courses. Now in the summer, it gets a little hot, so just tee off early. But we played this one. It's called Sand Hollow. It's my favorite course I played all year for sure. And you are literally like you're on the moon, or maybe even you're on Mars. Like it's just red rock with super, super beautiful green fairways. And this one, their signature hole, I think it's number 14. It's this big, long, uphill par 4. And on the left side of it is a literal cliff, like 300-foot cliff. So the fairway goes all the way to the cliff. And so if you hit it over there, your ball is definitely gone. It's just this really stark, amazing, beautiful place. And the views are insane. The Airbnb was like $200 a night for a 5-bedroom house.
Awesome.
I'm telling you, this is a great little hideaway. It is getting blown up. I'm seeing it on Instagram more and more. So if you're interested, get out there. And
I think they just
if you're in
hosted an
Vegas,
Ironman there too.
yeah,
Were
they
you there
did.
during that?
No, I don't. I think we missed that. I think it was a week prior to us being there. But yeah, it was beautiful. And so then we came back to Vegas on Monday. We went and played a softball tournament, and then I jumped in with par 3 and did the Ace Peer Group. So it was really a fun trip.
Awesome. I'm a big golfer myself. I golfed last week too. So I was just trying to
Yeah.
plug that in there because I know a lot of industry folks are golfers. They're always looking for a good course.
Golfing has become such an integral part to what I do in the landscape industry.
Mhm.
People say deals are made on the golf course. And yeah, I think there's some truth to that, but it's like relationships are built on the golf course and
Yeah.
then the deals are done at dinner after everyone's got some drinks in them. But I just would encourage you, if you don't golf, like go to the driving range, go check it out. And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how good or bad you are. It's just about getting out there, having fun, and you'll build some new relationships through that process.
Yeah, for sure.
So I really want to hear about your trip, Maggie, because I know
Yeah.
you had a bunch of takeaways. You came back fired up today. So why don't you tell us a little bit about where you went and why you went there?
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to be able to attend the NPMA, which is the National Pest Management Association's annual women's conference. So that was in Atlanta, Georgia, which still have PTSD from the airport. I know everyone talks about it and I've been there before, but
Why is it that bad? Is it worse than Denver?
oh, by far, it's the busiest airport in the world. And I have a theory on
Wow.
this. I have a theory. And here's why. Because like if you have Denver, Colorado Springs, not too far from there. There's a decent airport at Colorado Springs. Chicago, Midway, O'Hare, Dallas,
Yeah.
Love Field, and their main airport. I think it's like,
DFW,
yeah, DFW.
Dallas Fort Worth. Yeah.
Yeah. So Atlanta has one airport, and they're also a major hub of Delta. And just like their
Oh,
proximity for international travel and everything, Justin, there's when terminals go to the letter like L, it's too
oh,
big of an
geez.
airport. I had TSA pre-check and it was still like a 45-minute wait to get through security. And like it's just like just a sheer number of people. But one of my takeaways is Atlanta needs a second airport to house like Southwest and Frontier and Spirit and all these other airlines that aren't the Deltas of the world.
I'm not a big
Um,
fan of Delta. I'll be honest. I don't think they're that great.
Either you are or you aren't. I'm a Southwest girl myself because St. Louis has its own terminal just for Southwest. It's really easy in and out. I don't know. I have great
Yep.
points to them. So, but everyone has their airline. But yeah, regardless of the airport, the conference was great. Started with a self defense class, which was pretty cool. So they brought in a Taekwondo instructor to do a self defense class for the women, which it was a class that I never thought I needed, but now I'm so grateful I took. Taught you how to just get out of simple things like if someone was choking you or had you like there came up from behind you and pulled your purse, like how to react and the muscle memory needed to get out of those certain holds. It also talked about, how to protect your children in public because, child trafficking is becoming a huge problem and
Yeah.
unfortunately, and like being a mom myself of 3 young kids, like being able to protect my kids, that was a big takeaway.
What is this conference? What's the name of it?
I said it a bit ago, but I'm just gonna forgive you for not paying attention. It's the NPMA, so the National Pest Management Association Women's Forum. So it's our annual women's conference. We probably need one for the landscape industry as well. We have a women in landscape group, but I think an annual conference would be very beneficial for them. And then there was 3 keynotes, and I'm gonna not to be a Debbie Downer, but the first keynote was absolutely awful. And everything you were talking about being a good speaker, he did completely the opposite. And then, as I said, he. So there was a
Yeah.
male
Okay.
keynote at a women's conference. So step one,
Mhm.
wasn't my favorite thing in the world, but I'm going to give it benefit of the doubt. Started off, telling a story, telling personal stories that really draw the crowd in is important. But then he started going into some things like smile more and how women should smile more and not be so closed off, and that how we need our partners to thank our partners. And it just seemed like he like lost me at that point, and so I kind of got
Yeah. Bit
shame on
condescending.
me. Yeah, I got I got a little disconnected. However, they recovered. The next day, this keynote was absolutely fantastic. She talked about everything like women's face struggles wise, all of how to position yourself for leadership, how to not feel guilty about taking maternity leave, all of these different things that really hit home to me and the phase of life that I'm in. So really great. And honestly, just being around women all week really invigorated me, like really got me excited. There's everything from HR people to owners of companies. This girl owns Rattler Pest Solutions, which is a huge pest company here in St. Louis. And I got to talk to her for a while and really good connections that I feel like I'm going to have for a long time. A lot of champagne drink. And then the best part of it all, women were in bed. We love to sleep. We were in bed by like 9:30, 10 o'clock every night. So, we're all away from our kids. We all wanted our rest and we just, had our fun and then called it a night. So it was a
That's
great
nice.
week. It was the week that I think my heart needed that I don't know if I knew that it did. And on the plane ride home, I was just like reflecting and I was thinking about this recording. We're recording this on May 11th, which is the day before Mother's Day. I was thinking about the weekend and my husband who had been home with my kids during this whole time. And I decided to write down some tips. So like 5 want to like communicate to the working moms out there on how I get it all done or how I operate as someone who's in a pretty serious leadership position at a large company with 3 young kids. My kids are 6, 4, and 1. One of them actually, we cut it out of the episode, but she's joined us a couple of times during the episode. And it's up to you, Justin, but I kind of want to share these tips with our listeners.
No, I love that. I really would love to dig into this and hear your tips. I guess my real quick first question before we dive into this is what was the inspiration when you showed up to the conference versus the mindset you left in? Like, you probably showed up with one intention and you left in a completely different mindset. What maybe was the difference between those 2?
Yeah, anytime I attend a conference as being someone in sales that sells a product to these people, obviously I'm going there and I'm like thinking about like, okay, what prospects are going to be attending? What customers are going to be attending? Who do I need to connect with who? And I left like not even caring about that. And sorry, Aspire, sorry, Field Routes for saying that, but I felt it was more important to just create genuine relationships that I can take and build my network with. So my mindset mainly flipped from sales mode to friendship mode to advocate mode. The lady who spoke the second day, her biggest thing was say, like, the best thing we can do as women is mention each other's names or praise each other in their room when we're not there, when like that person's not there. So I really wanted to be like an advocate for people on my team, people within my organization when they're not in the room. And I want to continue to praise them, shout them out, recognize their just all they do because not to knock at men at all. Like I have an amazing husband who's super supportive of me, super fantastic. Justin, you are a phenomenal person. But just like as women, we are chemically made up to be different. We are so hard on ourselves to a different level
Right.
than I think men are. So that was my biggest takeaway is just, put someone's name in positive light when they're not in the room.
Do you feel like I don't even think this is man or woman, this is just like innate human behavior. We kind of have the tendency to not promote other people when they're not around. And we kind of have a tendency to maybe not talk well of other people when they're not around. That's just kind of normal behavior. We want to have something to gossip about. And
Yeah.
so is that part of it of like just being intentional about praising others,
Yeah.
specifically praising other women when you are in other meetings versus talking shit, for lack of a better term?
Yeah. Well, and I think part of the reason it's human nature not to praise other people when they're not like when they aren't around is to make yourself look better. To because you want to promote yourself. And if I'm
Yeah.
talking about somebody else, I'm not promoting myself. But it's actually the complete opposite. People notice when you talk positively about other people. They naturally gravitate towards you. You have this energy about you like, oh, I want to be friends with that person. I want to work closely with that person because I know they're going to say positive things about me when I'm not around. And so I think we need to just like get over this whole idea that by promoting other people, we're not promoting ourselves and give more to others.
I love that. Give more to
Mhm.
others than to yourself.
So my first thing I wanted to share, which I feel like I'm fairly good at, and we talked about it a little bit earlier in this episode, but it's to set priorities, not boundaries. And what I mean by that is your work life has to be intertwined with your personal life, and your personal life has to be intertwined with your work life. Think that's kind of a generational shift, not just women in general, but like I can't like I have to take kids to doctor's appointments in the middle of the day. I can't work at 8 to 5. Like I have to, if daycare calls, I have to leave work and go pick them up. But also, if that's the case, after bedtime, I have to log on and finish the tasks that I put aside. So I prioritize things in my life, including work, including home that have to get done, whether it be on a daily basis, a weekly basis, etc. And then I organize my time based on that.
I think we talk a lot about setting boundaries, but maybe we need to look more at priorities rather than boundaries because those priorities can be intermixed, right? Like
Yeah.
your top 5 priorities for the day or the week aren't all going to be work or all personal. They're going to kind of be mixed in. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, exactly what I'm saying. And I think that some of the from my observation from the people that I've worked with and in leadership, some of the most unhealthy employees and just people in general are the ones who say, I'm going to focus on work from 8 to 5 and I'm going to focus on home from 5 to 10.
Mm.
And then I'm going to get up and do it all over again. What ends up happening is they're focusing on personal from 8 to 5 because their mind, while they're trying to focus on work, is actually off somewhere on the personal side of things. And then they're constantly feeling guilty about focusing on work after hours. Just let the two be like work together. Like let them be intertwined. I communicate very well with my husband and he knows like again, Saturday that I had to do this and he respects it and supports it. And so if you don't let the two work harmoniously together, you're going to keep, and in the end, be more stressed out.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. And I think that's where Jill Odom said this on the podcast, and I loved it. It was the Sunday scaries,
Yeah.
and that anxiety, and there's so much anxiety in our world nowadays. That whole mindset of I'm gonna just turn it off when I go home, and then turn it off when I come to work, and create these boundaries. It ends up creating more stress and more anxiety at the end of the
Yeah.
day. And I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So it also leads into my second one, which
Perfect.
is be transparent, both at home and at work. And what your staff doesn't know, they will fill in the blanks with their own narrative. And so like if they don't see me in the off getting to the office until 9:15, they're thinking, oh, Maggie's not getting out of bed. She's, not getting in the office till 9:15. But I made it very clear, and I still make it clear, like if you don't see me in the office till 9:15, chances are I had to get my son on the bus, and his bus comes at 8:40. Overly transparent with them. And then, like, just same thing at home. Like, hey, I know this is a lot on you to have this work dinner, and I have this work dinner tonight. So I'm going to, pre-prep the kids' dinners, and I'm just going to be like, overly transparent that I have it, and here's the expectations, and my husband can handle it. So I think that if you leave the narrative open, my husband always knows who I'm at work dinners with. Justin, you've met him. Like there was this era where like all of this, infidelity is, and it probably still happens within the workplace, but like the one thing I've always been in my marriage and at home is over communicate and be overly transparent. Who you're going to be with, how long you're going to be there. Same with your staff. They expect the same thing out of you, like understanding so they don't have to fill in the blanks with their own narratives.
Great advice. One thing that pops out on that to me is proactively transparent. So like
Hmm.
getting ahead of it, of this is what I'm doing. And then I'd add, and I know you're really good at this, is when things change midway through, like all of a sudden the dinner's going really well, and maybe you work with a client, they want to go out for drinks to their favorite bar. We're going out to so and for drinks, probably another 2 hours from what I originally said. That
Yeah.
cool. That type of communication is so important.
Yeah, and I think you can take it even like a step further. I'm talking kind of like a lot about like my staff that reports to me and all that, but like as I like being transparent to my boss. Hey, I've been in the office for 3 months. I'd really like to attend this event to reinvigorate my spirit. Like I need to be around people. I need to do something. I need to get out. Please support me on this. That level of transparency is extremely because like what he doesn't know, he can't see, he can't predict my mind. Same with my husband. Like one
Yeah.
thing that people praise us on is like he just took a fishing trip for 5 days. And then, leading up to my trip to this women's conference, I went and visited my best friend for 3 days. Trade off. Like we both need to refresh our brain. We do a lot together. I make it sound like my husband and I are never together, but we we spend a lot of time together. But like if you can't communicate what you need and how you're feeling, which is so hard to do. So, like, if you need help with that, like, definitely seek a professional to help you do that. But just start somewhere. Start small. Like, start say by saying, like, hey, this is what I've got going on. I hope you support me in this. 9 times out of 10, I would say 9.8 times out of 10, you're going to get that support.
Okay. What's
We're
number
moving.
3?
Number 3, it's learn your kids' love language. When you are a working parent, and if you haven't read, the book about love languages, the 5 love languages, highly recommend it because it doesn't only work for home, but it works for work, like your personal, your professional, all the different types of relationships you interact with. Your kids' love language is incredibly important. As a working parent, since the time I get to spend with them is so limited, how I spend that time is so important. So I have, 3 kids. Braden, my oldest, like he could care less if I sat down and played a game with him. But he wants all of the hugs, all of the praise and saying, you're doing a good job. Words of affirmation and physical touch are his like main love languages. So I know when I'm with him that I'm going to tell him how proud I am. I'm going to look at his homework and give him hugs that, praise him on that. My middle one, Brinley, she's my quality time girl. If she could spend her day completely tied to my left hip, her cup would be full. So like I know that when
Yeah.
I'm around her, like I have to sit down and spend time with her. Now, my youngest, she's 1, just 1.5. She's starting to develop her personality. So identifying what's important to each your kids to fill their cup, it just takes burden and guilt off of you a little bit more because you know that you communicated them to them in the way that they need it. Have you read that book before, Justin?
I have. And it's such a powerful book. It's one that I would recommend revisiting like once a year.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I got to send this to John and Ryan. We were just doing a 2-year review yesterday or a Thursday, and it came up. This book came up. It was
Really?
recommended. And John, it's so funny.
Mhm.
It was
Mhm.
recommended by him to Ryan. And it was like these big grown men, these gruff guys, like, you should read the 5 love languages as part of the next year of your career development. I
John
was
has
like,
a super successful marriage, so I it doesn't surprise me.
he's good. He's a great leader. And I think that recommendation is so funny that it just got brought up again today. Just being intentional about how you approach every single person in your life, every valuable person in your life. Because if you approach everyone the same and manage and lead everyone the same, you're not going to have great results. But
Right.
if you're able to adapt that, right, to their love language and going all the way to the most important people in the world, which are your kids, then I think you're going to be able to get way ahead on this whole proactive transparency thing too. Kind of like these tips seem to be stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there is a reason. There's method to my madness while I was on the airplane. The second one or the fourth one, it's probably not something that everyone can relate to, unfortunately. I'm very blessed that I can write this down as something that helps me, but it's pay for convenience if and when you can. As a working
Yeah.
parent, you don't have time to do everything. And my best investment are my cleaning people, the person who cuts my grass, and the girl who lives across the street that I can say, hey, you want to make a couple extra bucks? I got 7 loads of laundry to fold and put away, like a mommy helper. She'll come tidy my kids' room or my toy rooms. She'll take that like mental stress out of me so I can be present with my children on the weekends. So paying for convenience is something that I don't think everyone thinks about, but it's taken such a burden off of my shoulders.
How did you get to the point where you were okay with doing that? I mean, a lot of people, whether they're financially in a spot where they can do that or not, they hold back from doing it because they feel like that's their job as the mom, or that's their job as
Yeah.
the household. How'd you get there? Was it a fight for you?
It was a fight for me, but in a different way. I'm perfectly good doing that. My husband, that's where I had to fight. Like he
Yeah.
is
Okay.
not one. He's like, I can just do it. Like I'll cut the grass. I'll do it. Blah, blah, blah. And then like when the grass is, a foot tall, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, we should really like get someone like he has to see, the benefit of it. So there's a lot of, that was my fight was with him. And for me, I've always been able to let that go because goes back to my episode, whatever episode that was, where I talked about my trade secret, which was do, delegate, or disregard. That's the delegate for me. Like I'm very
Yeah.
good, very strong in the delegation side of things. Yeah.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think we, as people who are leading organizations and growing within organizations, and of course, leading families and trying to be there for the special moments, this is an important part of that. And if you're so focused on this task you have to do, it adds stress. And then now you're more snappy with your kids,
Yeah.
you're more snappy at work,
Yeah.
and no one wins.
Yeah.
Full story, really quick. And then I'll get back to the number 5.
Yeah.
We started having a mobile detail guy come out and wash our trucks and our personal vehicles every 2 to 3 weeks. And it's been the best thing ever. My truck's always clean. Lila's car's always clean. But what's cool is I've developed a relationship with this guy, Jesus. He's one guy in a van. Well, over the last year, I started coaching him as just trade work. And so he'll like fully detail my truck and then I'll do like a 4-hour planning session for him. He's building this whole vision. He's hired 2 more employees. He's got another van on the way. He's trying to franchise his model. Like, got this huge vision. He's like 25 years old. And it's just a cool story because you just never
Yeah.
know who you're going to inspire. Like the person folding your laundry, like who knows how much inspiration she's getting from doing that for you.
Right. And she's seeing from me like that I'm delegating that task because I have, not more important things, but more important things. And also for you, how much better of a mindset do you feel when you get into your clean vehicle?
It's night and day. Client's property, like in a clean vehicle. We're big on clean vehicles at work.
Yeah.
So I got to be big on clean vehicles at home too.
Yeah, for sure. All of building those habits. All right. So my last one, and I'm going to say 1.5
Okay.
would be find a gym with childcare, shower at that gym as much as possible. So you can, have your time by yourself to get ready and not be stressed about doing it at home when you have 3 to 5 kids. And then there are going to be hard times. There are going to be so many hard times. Cry in a cold shower. That's like one tip that I learned from doing 75 hard is that when you are stressed, get into a cold shower and let it all out. And the reason for that is because the body can only handle one trauma at a time. And so if your anxiety is high and you're stressed out, which happens to me regularly, the cold water hitting you is a trauma that's going to overcompensate the anxiety and allow you to just let it all out. And you walk out of that 5-minute cold shower feeling like a whole new person.
Interesting. Okay.
I know you're an ice bath person. So honestly, I had a feeling you're going to like that one.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea of going, you check so many boxes here, right? You go to the
Yeah.
gym, you do something
Yeah.
for yourself.
Like
Yeah.
life changing because I can go to the gym, I can go to the sauna, I can go to lift heavy weights. I I actually went boxing twice this past week because I just needed to
Saw
get some
that.
aggression.
Yeah.
How cool did I look with those boxing gloves on?
You look like a badass. I do not want to mess with you. And now you got self-defense training. I mean, yeah,
Yeah. You're
you're
scared of me
totally
next time you see me. No, but like if literally like the endorphins are real. And like I think the main thing I'm trying to get at is like going back to the point before this, it's okay to take time for yourself. And I've found very effective, efficient ways to take time for myself. Showering at the gym and getting ready. So I'm not rushed and I can feel put together. I feel so much better when I'm put together. I feel better when I work out. But also, it's okay to like have your days where you break down. And usually, like when I find myself doing that, like cold shower, like go to the cold shower. And that's where I find myself feeling better. So,
Yeah. Well, I think the vulnerability there, Maggie, that you share is really powerful. And I know a lot of people listening are going to get big takeaways from this.
yeah.
What is your bonus takeaway? You said you had one more half one.
Well, that was the cold shower was the bonus takeaway. The childcare gym was
Okay.
my number 5. But I
Love
will
it.
say, I'm going to add one more comment to it. You and I were talking about Andy Frisella before this. He runs a very effective podcast. He runs a very successful business here in St. Louis. And I was actually listening to one of his podcasts, and he said people take hot showers to feel the pain of the heat to escape something else. But cold showers actually kick the system into the opposite reaction, where it like instead of like trying to escape it and it not disappearing through your body, the cold shower actually counteracts the nervous system and lets those intrusive thoughts and that anxiety leave your body.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense that it
Yeah.
does that, but it's also maybe just that opening from an emotional standpoint that your stress
Yeah.
needed to just get out. And
Mhm.
once you accept it and you face that trauma, you face that stress, whatever you're dealing with in that moment,
Yeah.
you're the next hour, you're like a new person. You're like reinvented yourself.
Yeah. And I know we have a lot of male listeners, and so some of these tips won't directly resonate with our male listeners. My biggest advice for you is if you're an owner, you manage females, you are married, you have a wife and kids, or whatever it may be, is to support them in all of these aspects because I feel very little guilt. Like mom guilt creeps in time to time, but I feel very little guilt because I have an owner at Aspire and Mark Tipton, a boss at Aspire and Jason Ring, a supportive leadership team and countless people that I can name off. And then my husband, Nick, that all support me in all of these different things because I communicate them, but also because they understand what it's like support a working female, a working mom.
I really appreciate you sharing that stuff because it helps me understand things a little bit better.
Yeah.
And my right, like our partnership right now at K&D is my dad, myself, my sister, and my cousin, Kelsey and Jessica. So I'm very aware as much as possible of women in the landscape industry or women in business.
Mhm.
And as they come more and more into the ownership mindset, I'm always looking for ways to empower them and give them
Yeah.
that confidence that they can do more than they think and they
Mhm.
can accomplish great goals, and not to let the fact that like my sister's getting married in probably like right when we launch this, it's the 25th of May. And so it's coming up and she's just so excited for it.
Yeah.
And she keeps saying, "Oh, I'm not going to take any time off. Like, we're going to do a quick, honeymoon." And I'm like, "No, no, no. You're okay. Like, you can take time off.
Mhm.
Enjoy yourself. Enjoy this moment. And know that, like, when you come back, we're going to embrace you and we're going to help you get to the next level." Do you ever feel that way or see that happen of people afraid to take time off?
So I have 2 comments there. First, for those who don't know Justin's leadership staff, Jessica and Kelsey, his cousin and his sister, very different points of life. Jessica has older kids. Kelsey is just getting married. The females have very different walks of life right now. And so I think it's great. You're going to have to adapt, how you support them to each of them. But I think that a lot of them could take away some of the tips I talked about. For Kelsey, I think a lot of times men want to be like, no, like take the time off, or people want to be like, take the time off, go on your trip. But I think what would be more beneficial for Kelsey to hear is if that's what you want to do, I support it. But whenever you need time off to celebrate this, I will also support that. Because if she would feel more anxiety about taking time off right after the wedding and then like coming back, getting work done, and then taking time off 3 months from now, that's her. Let her make that kind of decision. And so I think that she would want to hear like, I will support you in however you want to do it. Personally, I would want to take off time right away. But if you'd feel better coming back and then stepping away, totally fine with me as well.
I love that. That was such a good coaching moment, Maggie. It's important to understand that what you think is right or what you think is true or what you think is possible may not actually be the answer that you're looking for. And you have to be open to new opportunities, new ideas. And that's a great
Yeah.
piece of advice. It's just like
Yeah.
support the idea of supporting the person rather than saying, "I support you, so do X, Y, and Z."
Well, I think that's a great way to end the episode. I feel like we
Perfect.
could talk all day, but let's go ahead and wrap things up. Again, appreciate all of our listeners. If you would go ahead and rate, like, subscribe, do all the fun things, share this episode because I know we do have a lot of male listeners, which is amazing. I will support the male listener all day, but if you have someone that might need some help from that a mother that needs to hear this or female that needs to hear some support, feel free to share it with them as well.
Awesome, guys. All right, well, take care. And a quick plug, I will be talking at the Lawn and Landscape Technology Conference coming up. Should be July 23rd, 24th, and 25th. I think I'm talking on the 24th. But if you want to catch me at the conference, I'll be there. And I look forward to seeing you guys soon.